A common problem on this Volvo S60, V70, XC90 and so on from 2001 to 9, XC90 is later on, is the steering may feel stiff at some points. When you turn the steering, it may just feel normal, then stiff, then normal, then stiff. It's just like, it seems like it's locking. Usually that's the lower steering coupler. Let me just present you which one is this guy. So if I'm looking inside the engine bay, it's basically what goes into the steering rack. You perhaps don't see that well into this light. So it's the coupler that goes inside the steering rack. Lower one, because there's an upper one as well. But the one that goes stiff, it has to rotate. That goes stiff because of rust. It's the one that goes inside the floor here. This is the shaft from that coupler that it's underneath that small rubber cover or stuff like that. Here's how to test it, and also I'll explain a little bit how to replace it if you need so. Basically we just look underneath here. It's just behind the pedals. We have this big butt. I'll show you how to remove it. It has a big spring at the bottom, but first we have a butterfly screw wing. No, I think it's a wing screw rather. This is a special screw. We need to undo this 30mm bolt. And why it's special? That's because this is a safety bolt, so it's important. I'm going to use a torque wrench. The bolt, it's 20 foot-pounds, 22 actually, or 30 Newton meters. Is really important not to over tighten it and also not to under tighten it. Why? Because that bolt actually, when you have a crash, let's say it happens, it will just snap from there. So the steering column doesn't push towards the steering wheel, so the steering wheel doesn't come towards the driver, it stays in place. That's why it's important to place it correctly. Notice how it goes from the top to bottom. That's his position when the steering is centered, and you just undo this bolt nut on the other side. Also be sure to have the steering centered at this point and wheels centered as well, and don't rotate the steering wheel when that bolt is out. That's really important as well. So let's just undo that guy and see from there. This is how this bolt, specific bolt or special bolt, looks like. It has like a wing side, the flat side here. This is what keeps it from rotating when you tighten the nut. And again, when you have the steering straight, you have to insert this guy without its nut. You have to insert it from above, not from below, because if the nut happens to just drop from there for some reason, you still have the steering wheel connected with the steering rack. That's why it's really important for your safety. Let's just see a little bit how this lower rod from the lower coupler goes in there. So notice one thing, there is kind of a groove into this bar here, into this rod. There is a groove at the place where the wing screw is passing by, so it has to grab that groove. Very important. So also notice how the plastic from the upper coupler goes into there, so it's kind of catching it from the side. So let's just pull it from there. Notice the wing screw will pass here, has to pass there. So as this guy, it's really secure into that wing screw. When you put it back in place, you have to match this at the same height as the hole is. And also notice how the plastic thing is grabbing the top of it. When you remove it, the upper part is normal to move like this. That's because it has a second coupler right there at the top. But also this part is the steering wheel. Sorry, let me just bring back the camera a little bit. Is the steering wheel is connected to the steering wheel. You know, the steering wheel can be adjusted, so that's why you can actually move it up and down just like that. You notice how it moves? That's perfectly normal. Don't rotate it, but just move it up and down. It's okay. But when you place it back, make sure it is at the correct position so as to match it with the groove here. So basically right now I'm too low, so let's just push it up a little bit, and then you notice the plastic, it's inserted there, and also you need to match the hole with the groove. So let's just push it down a little bit, and then you just lean slide it into position and you make sure it's matched here nicely, so you can pass that wing screw. So this is how it goes. Again, wing screw goes from top to bottom. It's at an angle, but I still say top to bottom. And now for this guy, let's just hang this guy here. And now we have at the bottom this big rubber boot. It's for sealing the air so you don't get engine gases inside the cabin. So there is a second cover of it. Just lift it a little bit under this one hand, and at the bottom, sorry, you have a big spring. Notice how the big spring goes inside kind of a groove here, and it's also secured to a lip on the floor metal. It's important to place this clip back in place very nicely. It's a big one. It's just stretch it like this. I think it has two ends at some point. Yeah, right there at the top, you notice these two just press against each other like that and remove it from there. Cannot do it with one hand, but what I'm saying, it's really important to secure it nicely in place the same way, because otherwise you get gases inside the cabin, carbon dioxide and stuff. You don't want that, right? It's not safe. This is the circlip, don't forget it. And notice as well, there's kind of a bumps here in that boot, so the clip goes past that bumps, so it gets stuck into the boot. The boot, again, make sure you secure it. There's another bump on the other side, so past that ring, past that bump. The boot also has a bearing in there, not this one, not what looks like a bearing here, but there's a bearing right there that goes inside a lip of the boot. I think that bearing will come out with the boot. Let me see. Right. Yeah, it did come. It's into here. Let's try to film that. So this is the ring here. The bearing. Just remove it from there. When you put it back in place, it goes in there. This guy likes to rust and get stuck, and it will make sometimes quick squeak when you turn the steering. It also kind of makes the steering wheel a little bit stiff, but not too much, but it does add to the equation. So you may want to remove it from there, put some WD-40 whatever, and then grease it a little bit or replace it altogether. It's not a big bearing, but it's just if you want to make it better to fill. This is how the clip looks like. You just press basically like this, insert it, but when you insert it here in the boot, this is the part that goes to the floor. That's the second part that's covering. Notice that's where the clip goes into this groove. There's another one right there. Be sure to match it there into this hole here, and on the floor side, the metal side, it has to match in there at the bottom. That's how you secure it. Some people just leave it at the top, and then it's not sealing here airtight, and you get gases from the engine bay. So you don't want that. Make sure you press it all the way in there. It's a little bit tricky. Use a tool like a pliers to push it there to make sure it's secured to the floor. The steering wheel, this is your lower coupler right there. So I pulled the one from my Volvo 2002. It's a little bit stretched, but it's really melting. It's just melted. This one is from the older Toyota Sienna 2000. This is it. This is the shaft that goes to the steering wheel. And now to check the lower coupler is very, very easy. This way and this way, there's two ways, right? And you notice that that's why it's called a coupler, because it's kind of, I don't know what the mechanical term is, but it has two rotation and two axes. And you notice mine, very nice rotation like this, but when I try to turn it the other way, stuck. And that's why I'm saying, you turn the steering wheel, it kind of, you turn it a little bit, it goes smooth, and then it kind of grips, and then smooth again, grips, smooth again, and sometimes it kind of looks like it's getting stuck for some reason as well. That's what's happening there. So I hope you hear me right, because my camera is really down inside the engine bay, but this is the same guy filmed from the engine bay, and the bolt that's securing it, it's just clamping it on the shaft coming from the steering box. So this is the end of that bolt. The bolt is on the other side. It's just clamping it like this. The bolt is not too bad to remove. The problem is this guy, it's clamped on the shaft from the steering box and gets seized solidly there. It's worth trying it. Just get it in there, not outside, because the bearings that rotate, the four ones, are in there. You notice where the rotation happens, but it did help. It's obviously much easier than trying to remove it and replace the part, so it helps. And this is your little bearing. Make sure it turns nicely. Use engine oil as well, or clean it with something, but don't put grease if you have cold winter days, because grease will seize in there. So it needs to move pretty smoothly.